To all of you guys sitting out here, the walk from off stage to this spot doesn't really look very far. But what you don't know is this walk is actually 10 years in the making. See, 14-year-old Jordan was sitting in a crowd of students when my youth pastor asked us a question that I want to ask all of you guys tonight. What would happen if you took a risk, got outside your comfort zone, and walked across the room? He was challenging us to embrace the awkward and to take action by leaving the familiar safety of our friend group and going and befriending and welcoming and showing Jesus' love to our peers. And 14-year-old Jordan, I was at a point in my faith where I didn't know how God wanted to use me, but I knew I wanted to do something, and I wanted to be obedient. So I accepted my youth pastor's challenge, and I started walking. So when someone new would come into the door at youth group, instead of sort of just hanging with my friends or kind of hiding on my phone and pretending I didn't see anything, I walked over and I started talking to them and getting to know them. And as I share the story, it seems kind of simple and maybe even insignificant, and it would be, except for my journey didn't stop on the other side of the room. I continued walking, and it was an opportunity that God used to continue for more things, preparing me for bigger ways that He wanted me to be used and preparing me for other walks He was going to have me take. And I want to pause my story for a second and bring it down to our situation here today. Because all of us here, whether you're in junior high or you're a senior, we all have something waiting for us across the room. You could be 16 years old, you could be 18 years old, but we all have something. A need we could meet, an opportunity that we could take, a place we could serve, a conversation that we could have, something that's waiting for us across the room. And I know we're all in different places in our relationship with Jesus, but whoever we are, and no matter how old we are, we know that that opportunity is over there. But it's kind of scary, and it's awkward, and it's uncomfortable. So we're sort of just hanging back on our phones and pretending that we don't see it and sticking with our own friend groups, hoping that someone else will walk across the room so that we don't have to. But what we need to understand is even if what's across the room seems insignificant and small, it's a crucial part of the ways God is preparing us to be used in the future. Flashback to 14-year-old Jordan. As I continued to walking across the room and welcoming new students, I started to get more comfortable and more confident, and it was a little less awkward. It was still awkward sometimes, but it was less awkward. And I realized that I wanted to do more. So that led me to walk across my city in an awareness event for the Invisible Children's Movement. We walked miles around my hometown, getting people's attention and letting them know about child soldiers in Uganda who were being forced to fight someone else's war. And it was a long night. We slept outside on the wet grass. The ground was cold. We were waking up every couple of hours to pray. And as I'm describing it, like, it sounds pretty miserable. But I was too distracted by the amazing reality of being a part of something that was bigger than me, part of something that really mattered. And that experience of walking across my city made me want to walk a little farther. A few months later, 15-year-old Jordan took the opportunity to walk across the world on a one-week missions trip to Brazil with my youth group. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I didn't want to go at first because it was scary and it was uncertain and it was uncomfortable. But being in that sort of environment forced me to trust God in new ways. And for the first time, I experienced His love for other people flow through me. And that 10-day walk across the world changed my life. It made me want to do more, to walk even farther, and God began revealing to me the ways that He wanted to continue using me. So because of that walk, and by God's faithfulness and His goodness, I continued to walk a little farther. 2 years later, 17-year-old Jordan returned to that same Brazilian community and lived there for 2 months. And then the next year, 18-year-old Jordan went for 6 months and lived and served in that same community and went to a Brazilian school and even learned a new language. And through those experiences, I realized that God was calling me to full-time ministry. So I went to college and I studied youth ministry and missions. And during that time, I did an Apex trip to Rio de Janeiro, and I did a 6-month internship in Botswana, Africa, among other things. And now 24-year-old me is in full-time ministry. I'm walking across college campuses and helping connect young people with God's heart for the nations and find their place in his mission. And this 10-year journey that started when I was 14 years old has led me to this spot on this stage where I can share my story with all of you guys. And it's really important for me to be clear that me telling my story isn't about, patting myself on the back or taking credit because I got outside my comfort zone. Not one step of this journey would have been possible apart from Jesus. Because if Jesus hadn't first walked across the universe, walked on this earth, and walked to the cross, then he never would have walked into my life and changed my heart. It's his love and his example that made it possible for me to walk each step of this journey, both for him and with him. And you guys, if you start walking, you can't even imagine the places that he's going to take you or how he's going to use you. For all of us, it really comes down to two main things, two main questions. The first is, what's across the room? All right, where is God leading you to take that first step? Where does he want you to invest your time? How does he want you to use your gifts and abilities? Is there an opportunity to serve that maybe you've been putting off? Is there a conversation that you could have with someone? Maybe someone at church or at school who needs a person to talk to that you've been ignoring? Is God asking you to leave your comfort zone by going on a trip or leading a Bible study? Whatever it is, we can all think of at least one thing that's across the room. And I want us to hold that in our minds, and we'll talk about the second question. And that is, why should I walk? You see, we're tempted to think that, is it really that big of a deal? Or why now? But first, let's think about the different people who have impacted our lives. All right, every message that we've heard, every heart-to-heart that we've had with someone further along in their faith journey than us, all of these are a direct result of walks they've taken in their own lives. If people hadn't gotten outside their comfort zone and invested in us, where would we be? And beyond that, consider my experience. If 14-year-old Jordan hadn't experienced giving her first lesson on that missions trip in Brazil, and if 17-year-old Jordan hadn't ignored her nerves and shared a message in front of her youth group, then there's no way that 24-year-old Jordan would be able to stand on this stage and share with all you guys today. But God used each walk to prepare me for the next one. And it's an example that shows that these seemingly small walks get us ready for bigger things and greater opportunities to learn and to be used and to grow. So that thing that you have in your mind, whatever's across your room, I challenge you to start walking. This is just the beginning. Even though you can't yet see how, God is using these steps right here to prepare you for other things he wants to do in your future. He wants to use your unique gifts and experiences to impact the world. There's no shortage of needs, so there's no reason to put it off any longer. Living sent starts with taking that first step. So my question for you is, where will you walk?